Okay, so I'm going to be in Second Life for a little while, and I wanted to really. I'm actually very passionate about the amount of learning that you can, attend or get out of Second Life. I mean, if you're into Blender, for instance. I mean, where I am right here. So this class is just about starting, and it's what they call a text-based class with some media, and the media is obviously showed on the screen behind, and all you have to do is just click it, and then you follow the nearby chat, and they're expecting you to have the latest copy of Blender open because it's a Blender class. And this teacher here, who's called Rain Alderberry, teaches, at various different levels Blender. To basically, bring your work into Second Life, and so that's what that's about. So she's just at the moment laying some sort of ground rules down about the class. And I'll just talk about this as we go along, really. And you have to respond. I mean, you have to acknowledge the fact that you've understood what she said. There's obviously a time for questions at the end. So let's make it full screen. I like how she's got a large cocktail there while she's teaching, and I believe that the tutor is English. So you can make the screen as big as you like. The problem is with making this full screen is that I now can't see the chat, which is rather irritating. More, can I? No. Okay. So there's sort of like with any class really, you will have kind of warm up, and so I'm just going to pan around here to show you how many. I believe that there are 26 students here today. This is the reality of Second Life, and this is going on, on a Saturday night at 9 p.m. UK time, 1 p.m. I think the time zone is Los Angeles, I think, or is it San Francisco? I can't remember, but anyway, something like that. it's very well organised. It's very well planned and put together. Very structured. The teaching is structured. You know, the classes are, you know, you're expected to turn up on time, just like a real, you know, a real life, real world class. You know, you've always got latecomers, so we've got a latecomer here. It's quite an interesting avatar. Very interesting avatar. Oh, you do get all sorts. Quite interesting. And basically you follow the links, the text, you know, that's in the chat, so that you basically okay, you know, that you basically follow the class along, and you obviously have to acknowledge that you understand at what level you're at, and the you know, as you're going through the build, for instance, for Blender. Yeah, so it is actually really quite interesting. So let's just zoom around the class here. And this is the platform that I showed earlier in another clip, in an earlier video. We're approximately 600 odd meters up in the above the sim level. So today we're going to be marking seams on the build that was done. Now I've come through this class part of the way through, so I'm only just using this as an example of a class, and this tutor happens to be, in my opinion, one of the best tutors I've come across in Second Life so far, learning Blender. And even though I've been doing Blender for quite a long time, I think compared to quite a few people that attend these classes, you know, I still learn things, and I learn easier ways of doing things. That's the other key thing, is that you learn the tips and tricks from other people, you know, shortcut ways of doing things. So it's all rather good and very well set up. That's quite a nice shot with the Builders Brewery flag in the foreground there. So the process is very much, I don't know whether you can see the chat here. I mean, I don't, you know, but it's very much led in a very step-by-step way, so that people can follow. I think I can increase the font size on here, so maybe you can see, you know, how that's being relayed across the whole classroom. You know, it's done in a very methodical way, and so it's put in a way so you know exactly what's happening, you know how to do things, and when you start the classes off at the earliest level, you get taken all the way through, and you would then attend a series of classes, the next level up and the next level up and the next level up, and it goes along like that. You tend to stick with the same, you know, the build that you started in, let's say, Series A, will then be used all the way through that series, and then you may or may not use that build for the next series, and then you start working on other different things. You know, it just depends on what the classes are about, and it's just really, really, as I say, very well structured. I'm going to put this down here again. And if I go in and look at the display screen, the media screen, so you're given almost hand holding exercises to do, and you've got your version of Blender open, and if you follow the classes, and of course everyone's going to be slightly different, but you get the general gist or the idea of how the class goes along. And you can't really go wrong, not really. And that's what I like about these classes. I've attended classes before, years ago, in Second Life at other different education establishments, and the very often what tended to happen was you got lost part of the way through the tutoring, and then you kind of lost your way, and it just became a little bit disheartening. I used to find it, because there were too many assumptions made. Now we're talking older versions of Blender, Blender version 1 and the early versions of Blender 2, and they were difficult. The interface was very difficult. It wasn't very intuitive, and unless you knew your way around Blender, even in the lower, the sort of the beginners classes, it was quite difficult to keep up. And sometimes the tutor would sort of run ahead, making an assumption that you knew what a certain, where a certain menu option was, or a certain node, and it was frustrating. I learnt a lot. They were good, but I have found recently that more specifically this year, that these classes here at Builders Brewery are outstanding, and I have actually passed my opinions and thoughts on to this particular tutor here, Rain Alderbury. I would highly recommend her classes. Now, if you're an expert at Blender, you might find these kind of boring, and to be honest with you, sometimes when the classes get people are focusing on their particular type of question, it can go a little bit too slow. But that's sort of a given, really, when you're in a class of 20 odd 30 people. Everyone sort of operates at a slightly different level. But if you're patient and you follow through, you come out on top, because you've learned something very, very useful. And I have certainly transformed my own builds because of the classes that I've attended this year, for sure. And I would consider myself a mature person, user. I'm not a guru expert at Blender, but I use it quite a lot, and I've used it quite a lot building in Second Life for the last 13 years, and my builds have changed. The quality of my builds have changed. My understanding of Blender and using certain things in Blender have changed, especially nodes and scripting. Not scripting, nodes. I was kind of nervous about using nodes. I didn't feel very confident about using nodes, and a couple of classes in here, and I feel completely confident, and I'm now purchasing specialist nodes, that because I now understand how they work and how important they are to make your builds in Blender look so good, and especially when you bring them into Second Life. I've envied a lot of builders work really and creators work in Blender and bringing it into Second Life and really trying to figure out how they do it, how they make it look so good. And now I do, and I now know. And one of the things, if anyone knows anything about Second Life, one of the things that has always been a bugbear for me is land impact, and I think it is for a lot of people in Second Life. You try to make something look good and at the same time lower your land impact, and that's that's the dream, is that you can make something, create something artistic or nice looking, bring it into Second Life and still make it look amazing, but at the lowest land impact and overhead that you possibly can. And that's something else that's been a bugbear of mine really since the very early days of designing in Mesh, and bringing it into Second Life. And now I know how to do it. And now I know how to make things look good and still make it look good from a distance or close up, depending on what we were given in one particular class. Rain Alderberry's sort of magic formula for LODs and land impact, and it was just amazing. Absolutely, completely transformed my builds in Second Life. It really did. You try finding information like that on the internet and you get so much. I've spent years searching, practicing, tweaking to try and get it right, and it's been difficult. And of course, once a builder in Second Life has kind of mastered it themselves, they don't go around telling other people how they do it. And that's the other irritating thing, because they keep it very close to their chest. So this is it. I mean, I would highly recommend, if you just want to learn anything to do with Blender, and I still know quite a number of builders in Blender who still build with in-world Prim, and they don't want to tackle Blender at all because they just think that it's way too complicated. It's too difficult for them to learn. And I just always say to them, well, go to a series of classes in Builders Brewery, download a copy of Blender and start learning, because you can. It's done in such an easy and understandable and methodical way that I challenge anyone who's never even used Blender before. Start off at the beginning and work your way through, and you will be a more confident person at the end of it. And we've got Santa here already. Santa, who is extremely bright. Yeah, that's pretty good, actually. It's pretty good. So let's just convene here and just observe how the classroom works. So you can't really go wrong. I mean, classes I've attended before were voice, and they had a demonstration. They were streaming their Blender into Second Life during the classroom, and I remember, I mean, it just gave me some horrendous flashbacks, really, when I first started attending these, because I thought, oh my goodness, I hope then just not going to plow on forward assuming that you know your way around Blender. And very often, I remember in the past, so many of the students in the classroom were just lost, because the tutor just went way too fast, and it doesn't help. It doesn't build your confidence, because then you just think, oh, this is too difficult, it's too difficult, and you give up. And you get explanations of why things are being done as well. That's the other good thing. These are little tips. And then at the end, the tutor obviously wants to make sure that everyone's comfortable and understands everything. And then at the end, she will give you the course notes, just like a real life college course. And these classes are for free. That's the other thing. These classes are free. They're free to attend. You get the course materials for free. Sometimes you get textures for free. You get sample files for free, and such like, so that you can follow along in the classroom. I mean, everything about this Builders Brewery classes is just absolutely brilliant. I mean, you're going to tip the person, and hopefully tip the owner of the sim, because obviously the sim costs money to host the sim. But it goes without saying, really, that you tip the tutor for teaching you something that would probably cost hundreds of dollars if you were to go in real life and learn much the same thing. So now she's asking. So obviously, you're following this through. You're following it, and she says, are there any questions? And it's just really polite, I think, to respond, so that she knows that you're that you're listening and that you're following along. And if you have a question, very often you can ask questions. There'll be a questions and answers thing at the end, rather than during the course, obviously, because it holds the course up. But she will actually answer questions if you have an issue with anything part of the way through, and sometimes people do. So there you go. That's probably about it, really. There's always, as I say, they've got a website with all the classrooms, all the classes, times, everything. They've got a schedule, obviously, here. You've got links to all the various different classes. I mean, you just can't go wrong. It really is quite amazing. They've got information here, about the Builders Brewery, established in 2008. They have different sorts of events and such like going on, and they obviously encourage people to use the sandbox, which I do quite a lot here. I like the sandbox here. The speed is good. And so here we are. These are the classes for tomorrow, and this is how the various different classes. So they got Blender Beginners Series A, and that's split into different parts. And then they go Blender Series B, C, D, and of course, as the classes progress on, you learn more. You use the skills and everything, the techniques and whatever it is you learnt previously, and you bring those with you on the next series of classes. And yeah. So they've got a group. I don't know what Builders Brewer Speakeasy is. Builders Brewer Blender Users Group. That's quite interesting. And they do Mayor as well. I don't think I've joined the Blender Brewers Blender Users Group. Interesting. Maybe I have joined it. Even Santa Claus is here, look. It's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. There we go. I have met several people actually over the years who have got a very obscure opinion and view about Second Life, and I think it depends on their own personal experience. In the early days of Second Life, it did go a bit haywire because there weren't enough rules and regulations in place about, you know, adult related things and you know, moderate sims and such like, and so they're kind of, you know, I remember distinctly, it kind of got out of control at one point, and it seemed very, very haphazard, and it was being flooded out with sort of troll type people, people who I can remember being extremely annoying. And then the Lindens tightened up the terms of service, what you were and weren't allowed to do. They kind of segregated the different categories of sims, because everything was pretty much open before, and you could do pretty much what you wanted to do, you know, before. And of course that left it wide open for certain people to abuse in big time, and it made it just very you know, an unpleasant experience. But it's matured for sure, and I don't see it really going away at all. And people keep saying it's dying, it's dying. It's not dying. There is a constant level of about 35 to 40,000 people in Second Life every time I log in, and that goes up drastically for things like Fantasy Fair, you know, and special events like the Second Life birthday event, and you know, it's and as I've mentioned in pretty much all of my videos, I like building, I like creating, always have done. I've built for a lot of people, a lot of sims, and you know, simple stuff, complicated stuff, fun stuff, and I just find it fun. It appeals to my creative side, and I have met some amazing people in World, and still continue even after many years, still friends. I have no idea what part of the world they're in, and yet you get on like they're a next door neighbour, and as I said many times before, it's the learning side that really appeals to me. I mean, you really can't go wrong. Everything's highlighted for you, and you know, it's just excellent, really excellent. Anyway, I think I'll end my stream. I think you can see her name there, Rain Alderbury. So yeah, if you come into Second Life, come to a class, learn how to use Blender, learn how to make your own clothes, your own objects, your own anything, do your own scripting. You know, it's good education, and it's free. It's free. There is no obligation to pay anything at all. It doesn't cost you anything. But as I say, I always like to tip the tutors because they are using up their real world time and effort putting into delivering these classes and tutoring people. And I just think it should be rewarded properly, you know, not just giving something like 10 lindens. You know, I've seen people giving some pretty low numbers, and you just think, well, you know, when you really work it out in real money, it doesn't really justify the amount of effort that someone's put into putting this class together, you know. Be realistic. It's the same. You go into a class in real life, or you go into a restaurant and you really enjoy the meal and you've had a good time and the experience is good, then you tip the person that's put the effort into doing it. And I think that's only the polite thing and the right thing to do, really. Again, it all comes down to what people can afford, you know. I think the majority of these people here, let's have a look. Let's see if we can see. Yeah, I mean, the majority of avatars here are actually been in Second Life for quite a long time, and there are some young. And there's one there that's only 87 days old. So, but that could be an alt. You don't really know. But anyway, but there is a whole mishmash of. There's 47 avatars in the sim at the moment. 26 odd or more are actually here in this classroom. You know, it's quite fascinating. It's really fascinating. Anyway, thanks for watching the stream. Thanks for being patient. And I hope to see you in World. You know what my name is. And you know, my name's Magus Hellwalker, so that's my name in Second Life. Hope to see you in World. Okay, bye now.